Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service. Today I'm going to present a few astrology facts along with a moon ingress. The moon ingress from Aquarius to Pisces. I haven't done a moon ingress in several years. I was kind of surprised when I looked back at my work. I got into doing them and realized, to do them right, you almost need to do them every other day or every second day because the moon changes so quickly. But I thought instead I'll do them randomly when the charts kind of look interesting, like today. So today is November 29th, and at 7:15 this evening, I'm doing it much earlier than that, but at 7:15 this evening, the moon will go from Aquarius to Pisces. And when the planet or point goes into the sign, that very first time, that's when you want to do a chart. Now, I mean that, for example, this is a great lead into some of the astrology points I wanted to talk about today. When a planet ingresses, the chart that's most important is when it ingresses the first time. I'll give you an example. Jupiter is getting ready to ingress into Aries, okay? But the actual ingress chart occurred when it first went into Aries the first time, which was May 10th, 2022 at 7:21 p.m. So as it goes into this Aries this month in November, it's actually in the next week or so, okay? It really is going to go back to that first chart of the 10th. So when you're looking at an ingress, the most important ingress is the very first one. After that, it's just going back and forth, okay? We have Jupiter doing that right now. It finally goes in, I believe, for good in March. It's interesting. March is a really important time. I'm probably going to do a lot of videos in March. And the reason why I say that is we've got a Pluto ingress into Aquarius. We've got a Neptune. Neptune isn't until March of 25. So that's 2 years later. Because we have in May is when and it's December 20th. Jupiter will be in Aries. May 16. So it's actually March, April, May. Right in there, though, there's a lot of stuff. Saturn is ingressing in March. That's what it was going to be. And that's going to be from Aquarius to Pisces, just like the moon today. So isn't it interesting? And that's going to happen at 8:34 a.m. March 7th. So March 7th and March 23rd. So there we have it. March is a big month. So I figured a lot of videos in March. I just thought it was really ironic that Neptune is 2 years later, but also March. So the spring seems to be a really good time for some of these main ingresses right now, which is very, very interesting. So I wanted to point out a few things as an astrologer. First of all, I want to say that my objective in doing all of the work that I do is to hopefully inspire people who are students of astrology, meaning that you don't have to be a professional. You might be a rank beginner, but I want to be able to throw out information that will help you understand more about astrology, whatever it is that you want to do with your astrology. Sometimes you only want to study your own chart. That's fine. That's actually awesome, really. But the other thing about that is, wow, that I got my train of thought. Something popped up on the computer and totally like took me out of my realm here, which is weird. And I don't know why that happened. But anyway, weird stuff on the computer. Anyway, I wanted to go through the fact that we are in a very interesting time. Actually, the chart today was pretty cool too, because we are at the beginning of a new age. We can begin to see things regarding this new age. With these planets going into Aries, especially the things that are going into Aries, and even Saturn going into Pisces, and Pluto is going to be going into Aquarius. I mean, we are really looking at a new age with new eyes. Okay, it's the beginning of an age. We're not always going to see it. I can see it because of things that are going on around us. We're looking at war differently. Okay, the way we're handling the war in Russia, definitely more of the new age. The rebellions that you see going on in in China, in Iran, and okay, these are all a part of an Aquarian type of revolution. So we're not necessarily in an age of war. That's why we're looking, the war is done so differently. We're more in an age of revolution. So I thought that was really interesting. So when these planets are beginning to ingress, and again, March is only a few months away, it's going to be rather exciting. I wanted to talk about the ingresses. I wanted to talk about also math in general. So when we're doing a chart, one of the single most important factors is the time. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do a chart at all because the day is important. There are astrologers, even online, that will say to you, I don't have the time for this chart. So we could still look at the sun, or in my case, I would say the sun axis, because that's what I've used, which is still 4 points in a chart, and it would be highly accurate. It would be highly accurate, however, to everyone born on that day, in that year. But if you were having to build a chart, and I've been doing astrology like since the 70s, where I've had to erect my own charts, because that's literally probably about 20 years before I got a computer. Could be even earlier. I started really young. So, and I am older. Not taking anything from that. But one of the things that we did was we used ephemerises, and you got your time and you did your math, and then you set it up with an ephemeris based on that time, and you had to adjust all time to where you live, longitude and latitude. And which brings me to another point, which I'll get to in a minute. But you must always, the time is the basis of the ascendant and the midheaven. And if you looked at an ephemeris, all the other houses, you just kind of fill them in. Okay? That's kind of how it works. Ephemerises are what we used to use to build charts when we didn't have computers. So time is everything. For example, I recently had on my comments, somebody had asked about doing diurnal charts. And the diurnal chart, which is a daily chart, is based in your time, date, the day you were born, but not when you're doing a diurnal. You're changing your date. Okay, so let me explain this, because I'm getting myself confused. When you're working with a diurnal chart, you're going to be using exactly your birth information. If you were born June 10th and you're now doing a diurnal for December 10th, you still got to use daylight savings time. Say you're using solar fire or Janus, you still got to use that right time. You can't go off of daylight savings time because December's off. No, the time must be exact. So if it's daylight savings, you stay with daylight savings. If it's 6:58 in the morning, a.m., daylight savings, that's what you stay with. So I'm doing December 10th. It'll be 6:58. Go down, change my time zone to daylight savings. That's how you do a diurnal. You can change the day, but everything else on that chart should stay the same. And by the way, I also use place of birth. The only thing I change is the day. So the birth chart, the basic birth information, is all the same. It's only the day that changes. Okay? I have played around with changing locations, and I've had interesting results. So I just want to throw that out there. Now, as we're speaking about these times, let's talk about Astrodienst. I highly encourage the use of Astrodienst. It is a software online, so you don't have to pay the hundreds of dollars it costs to get software, whether it be from Janus or even more expensive from SolarFire. You're not sure what you're going to do with your astrology, and you don't want to make a big investment, but you are interested enough to every now and then go out and check things or check people, put their birth information in. Please understand that all time has to be corrected. If you're born in the United States, there's always the East Coast of the United States, there's always going to be that 5-hour lag between the world clock and us. If you're in California, that increases. If you're in Australia, that decreases so much you go the other way. So your time adjustment to where you live, longitude and latitude, becomes incredibly important. Okay? It's part of your unique fingerprint, if you will. That's why I like to stick with it sometimes when I'm doing diurnals. I won't always do it for return charts, but I will definitely do it for a daily angle. When it comes to using Astrodienst and software that's out there on the internet, they are all set for the world clock. They do not use daylight savings time. In other words, okay, so a client comes to me this week and she's trying to find something on Astrodienst, and she's using the time that the person had told her, and she really thinks the moon should be something else. And I said to her, well, if you time adjusted, you'd probably have it right. And what I meant by that is that you have to take into consideration if it's Eastern Standard Time or if it's daylight savings time, in this case, because if it was on the East Coast, and you have to take into account that 5 hours. So if it's daylight savings time, okay, you can go to 4 hours. But you see how that works. You absolutely have to take all of the information. Software does so much for us that it really spoils us, because all we have to do is put the real time in and where it is. And then the computer will say, oh, they were doing daily savings at that time in this particular place. And it does it for you. Okay. Astrodienst is based on a world clock. So that's not going to happen. And by the way, when she adjusted the time, everything was perfect. So I think that for people who want to do astrology, please do astrology. But understand that you do have to make mathematical adjustments for your time. Okay, speaking of mathematical adjustments brings me to yet another point I wanted to talk to you all about. And that is, I had a video called The White Moon Selena. And I guess almost 300 people, or it had a lot of views, almost 300 views, which for me is a lot. And I felt really bad, but I had to take it down. And the reason I had to take it down is because an astrologer approached me through the comments, and I'm so grateful, because that is what we can do for one another. Astrology has such a high integrity score that you do not want to put any misinformation or disinformation out there. You really don't. You don't want to ruin the integrity score. With that said, I, as an astrologer, really took to heart what this person had said. This astrologer pointed out that there have been 2 different runs, mathematical equations, configurations. This is not a planet. This is a point in space. And unfortunately, the math has changed. And he was not, or she, I'm sorry, I don't want to put any gender on there. This individual was not sure that solar fire was up to snuff math-wise. And I, having used solar fire, many versions to get here, but since the 90s, early to mid 90s, long time, and realize, yeah, there's other stuff that we do in there as astrologers. I remember Martha, that's my teacher, working on daily angles and not being able to use the LST, which is a time thing. Daily angles are different than diurnals, by the way. So they are 2 different things, but they can get very close to the same thing in terms of answers. They both work with the day. When you're working with that, she actually had a sheet where we had to adjust mathematically our time. With that said, what I was saying about what Selena is and maybe what she means could have been highly accurate, but if you don't have the right math, you can't get that point. You can't get that mathematical point. Janice doesn't have it, so it's only in solar fire. I don't know about Astrodienst. It would be worth checking. That's an ongoing kind of software. If it was in there, I would think that would have been the most updated math. but I don't know that it is because I don't use it. I have a lot of my own software. So with that said, please note I had to take it down. I do apologize for that, but I can't leave anything up that I think might not be accurate on some level, okay? Because of the integrity of astrology itself. With that said, if you are someone who finds someone, please do as our friend did and let me know. Because I only want quality information on either my website or on my YouTube channel. So I want to thank whoever that was. And again, that is just something, I mean, I love the concept of what Selena is. I love it. But on the other hand, I can't put it up there if it's not mathematically configured correctly. So with that said, on a more up note, let's look at the next thing I really want to look at here is our chart that we're going to look at today. So I'm going to look at an ingress from Aquarius into Pisces. Now, please bear in mind that every moon changes. So every ingress chart is going to be different. Even though the moon is in Aquarius once a month, there would still be it's going to be different each month because we're in a different chart otherwise. Unlike other planets that might go into a sign, come back out of the sign, go into this, and then you would go by the first chart. When it comes to the moon, it is a big reflection on that moment. And that moment is always changing. The moon in astrology is one of the greatest predictors of time. It is also the people. It also represents the feminine or females, but it's really all of us, our emotions. So it's that feminine principle within all of us, even the males. Just like women have Mars, men have moons. So here we're dealing with the concepts of emotions, the idea of security, it's ironic because right now, as I'm speaking to you, the moon is in Aquarius, which is really rather masculine, and it's going into a more feminine, and it almost is going to be more moon-like later today than it is right now. So I'm going to be as objective as I can, as unemotional, because it is, after all, an Aquarius. When the moon gets here, though, it is conjunct Vesta, so there will be an objectivity to this particular moon. But I do want to point out all the things the moon stands for. I also want to point out that we have just broached a new age, the age of Aquarius. I know other astrologers have different opinions about that. Who've studied the ages, I can really see even where it's changed. But I know what happens at the beginning of an age. We just get stronger and stronger about being Aquarius. So you'll see more and more Aquarian factors. And somebody else pointed out it's the rise of the feminine principle. Yeah, I believe that too. So all of that's also going on at the same time. So let's talk about, for example, we were just in the sign of Aquarius. We're getting ready to go into the sign of Pisces. But while it was in Aquarius, we've seen and we've really made, and you'll see this in this chart, the media has really gone after the revolutions that are occurring all over the world. And I'm talking about Iran, and I'm talking about China, and no, Iran's the one in Iran has been going on for quite some time, but I do believe that, especially since the World Cup, things are really taking on a different tone. I think what's happening at the World Cup is very exemplary of that Aquarian energy, that revolutionary spirit, if you will. And I think that what we're going to be seeing in this chart, and I'm going to really talk to the moon, the people. And it doesn't matter if you don't, even though I'm doing this chart for Washington, D.C., it doesn't matter where you live in the world. The revolution is beginning. But with that said, and I'm going to point this out in the chart, I got to get to this chart, the religious concepts and the way they want, it's let's look at it. Okay, so I got really excited about this chart, so you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why did she even decide to do this chart in the first place? I was actually going to do asteroids. I was still going to talk about the math and the dates and the time and all of that stuff. But this chart was pretty good. Okay, it was a kind of a good exemplary. I cannot talk today. I should look at Mercury. So here we are today's date, and the moon at that time is going to be ruling the chart. It's interesting. That's right off the top. It's an ingress chart. The planet that's being ingressed, which in this case is the moon, it's a point, it's not a planet, it's the moon, but nonetheless, the moon is ruling the chart at the same time the moon is changing its clothes, so to speak. So it's really interesting. In this case, it's happening in the 8th house, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. No, it's actually death. Well, it is sex too, but it's death and insurances and other people's money and pooled resources. So there's a lot of factors in that 8th house that moon is going to be speaking to us about over the next few days. And that's all it'll be, okay? A day or two. Now, let's look at this because literally that moon, and this is what I was talking about, is in conjunction in 10 minutes of being a perfect conjunction. It's a slightly out, but it's only 10 minutes out. And to some people, it's not out at all because it's only 2 minutes and 40 seconds, or 2 degrees and 40 minutes rather. But it's conjuncting the objectivity planet. It's work. It's work. It's doing the work. The people doing the work. The people having an objective. The people having a goal. This is great. And this is good for everybody. I mean, it really is great for objectivity. It also could be talking about people at a distance, women at a distance, work that's at a distance. But this is just incredible. And in the sign of Pisces, which is a Jupiter Neptune sign. Okay. Now, with that said, brings me to the next point. You can tell I've been through this already. The Neptune Jupiter straddling the midheaven. Now, and this is the DC chart. So now, if you're somewhere else in the world, even in California, this chart may not look the same. Jupiter and Neptune would then be 6 degrees apart, which means that, yes, worldwide, there's an influence of Neptune on that Jupiter, but Jupiter's leaving. Jupiter's moving on, expanding, healing, if you will. And I do want to say healing, because Neptune represents, that's right, the virus, the illnesses, the sicknesses. Jupiter is pulling away, okay? But it also represents religion and religious concepts where people are also pulling away. You know, the extremism. And that goes for things, what's going on in China. It goes for what's going on in Iran. So you see how that works out, okay? It's kind of pretty beautiful to see. And since this is a DC chart, it's kind of cool to see it in the 8th house, okay? Because it kind of belongs there in a way. So it's very cool. So it's interesting how it's going to play out in the next couple of days. And I'm just really curious to see that. Now, back to Jupiter Neptune. I went through all of the things that represents. And we know that Jupiter is pulling away. Now, in DC, we do have a problem. See how it's the midheaven is there. That's why it would be interesting to see this point anywhere else in the chart. Okay, so here on the East Coast or whatever, we in the state actually have some issues going on right now with the religious right trying to impose their will on the rest of us. And so we are in that position. Now, we're turning corners everywhere, even with the stuff that's going on in Iran and China. And I'm going to go with, even we don't know about it, but I bet you there's stuff going on in Afghanistan as well. Okay, I'm not going to say that, it's not in the press yet, but everywhere I feel that people are healing, and this is terrible to say, but they're healing from religion. Now, that's not to put religion down, because I think that spirituality is as individual as we are as people. I think the problem with religion is that it has really tried to group and box and pin people in, and it's been becoming more and more oppressive to people. And like somebody was sharing the fish story, how Catholics, I grew up in a family that actually, my father's side is very Catholic. And, you know, you never eat meat on a Friday. And then you find out that the only reason that was done is because the Pope wanted more tax dollars out of the rich. I mean, it's all politics, right? So it's very hard at this time. And this is interesting about the Jupiter Neptune too, because Jupiter I affiliate more with politics, Neptune I affiliate more with religion. But they are seen together in Pisces. I really like that they came conjunct and are splitting apart. Now, I know that they do this like what, every 18 years or something, right? Because it's Jupiter, but I know that every 18, the world is in a different place. And right now, I do really feel that we are pulling away from organized religions. In some cases, it's because of their leadership. Sexual abuse stories all over the place. Hates Chronos, the bad actions of leaders, particularly in the past. Now, it doesn't mean that something isn't going to happen right now in the present related to some bad things that leaders have done in the past. I mean, the United States is getting ready to, I believe, subpoena the ex-president. I think that is going to happen, and it's going to happen rather quickly. I hope that, and I'm sure it will, that they get all of the Congress members who were involved in that, and that they are ultimately thrown out of office. Now, does that go on in the next couple of days? Probably not. But it does look as though some really good stepping stones could be made in that arena. So that, again, I, after the midterms, have been so absolutely calm about everything. My state really is kind of getting blue again. Okay. And that's always a good feeling. And again, that's why in my state, which is in this, arena, this chart, really is having a little bit of a problem at the moment. And I think it's because they're losing all of their majority all the way around. And I think that we're pulling away from them because they're delusional, because they're deceptive. So if you're somebody who's really, really religious, I would think that some of these religious idiots would really be insulting, because this is not what religion or spirituality in particular is ever based on. So it's just really interesting. I love it. I feel so good about coming from this storm. And if you don't live in this country, let me explain to you why I still feel really good, even though we only lost the House by a very slim minority. In this country, there is an incredible amount of cheating. Gerrymandering and voter suppression are literally really bad here. I think it was 19 states enacted 33 laws or something ridiculous and of this nature. You'd have to go back and listen to Heather Cox Richardson because she knows this stuff very well. And what has happened is that we really have an issue here with the radicals wanting to take away our ability to vote. The basis of democracy is that the government works at the consent of the people. And that's true of any democracy. And I know there's oh, it's a republic. But I'm going to go back to Heather Cox Richardson's words. Oh, so you have a golden lab. You don't have a dog? I mean, come on, guys, right? A republic is a democracy. When people say they're going to make America great again, I have to cringe because there's never been a time when we're great. We've never had equality in this country. I speak as a woman. Okay. So, and I know that minorities are marginalized. I know that our indigenous populations, as in plural, have been marginalized. So, never great. White man is what they're trying to say when the right man is in charge, But in any event, the beauty of seeing this at this particular time and what we should all be happy about is that separation. Because I am. And as I was saying, in order for us to even do as well as we did in this election, in any other real democracy, we would have slaughtered them. We would have absolutely shellacked them. But because there's so much suppression in this country, because we do have all of this, the Democrats, we figured, have to win by about 5 points to just break even. And I can assure you that we did better than that. And that makes me very happy. But then again, that might be the young people, and I've waited for them for my whole life. I know I say that all the time, but it's really true. In any case, we've been saved. And if you're starting to feel calm and if you're starting to feel good, let that Jupiter do its thing. I think that even, especially as it runs into Aries, around the holidays, I just think there is going to be optimism. And I think because some of it's going to be news that we're hearing, and let me go to why I think that's true. Okay, so we're going to look at these asteroids. I'm only going to stay because I don't want to keep taking up a bazillion hours for these things, but let's just look at what I see. Okay, so up here, I'm just going to take Nemesis, for example, because that's the one that's in. We're going to go 10 degrees on either side. Nemesis is the asteroid that's in on the chart. I have a list of them, but I'm not going to go through them all. And Nemesis is about blame. And I think this is really cool. Look, blame on what? Is this the lawsuits that are being done by the Republicans where they really have no basis? Or are we going to blame the religion and the religious people for the mess we're in? So the blame game. But with that said, please be careful. All of us, because 21 to 22 degrees is an aspect regardless of where you live in the world, which is why I'm going through this. Watch what you blame. You might not have all the information. Watch who you blame. Be careful. A lot of deception, a lot of lack of clarity with this. So you want to look at that. Okay. With that, I'm going to jump over here. I loved this. Okay. Hecate is running in a 12th house, but now this is it's a little bit more than 2.5 degrees. So here we go it's a conjunction no matter where you live. It might not always be in the 12th house. I kind of liked it in the 12th house because it means that those of us around here are going to have some pretty interesting dreams. Okay. Hades is about the past. So I'm a person who is interested in things like past lives and all of that. And I'm just thinking, wow, what kind of dreams am I going to have? Especially since the moon itself rules this chart. It's in the 8th house, the house that's really associated with that kind of stuff. And it is in Pisces. So I am excited, personally. Okay. But I also want it to be that, I believe that there's also a lot of intuition that's happening around Washington, D.C. that is also optimistic. Okay. I think there's a lot of us that are optimistic. I'll give you an example, especially if you're not from this country. There are about at least a dozen Congress members who are involved in January 6th. They are going to be indicted, and they are going to be subpoenaed. And that number is already bigger than their majority. So you can see where I'm going with this. Okay. So you can see why a lot of us are optimistic. Basically here, what we're seeing, okay, is, and this is interesting too, because look at that Nemesis, that, blame game, to Neptune, deception, religion even. But look at this, advice. Some people are going to blame the fact they were given bad advice on what's going on. I think that might be the ex-president also. I think they're already trying that, he thought he won, he got bad advice, So remember, this is only going to last a couple days, okay? But in that couple days, you are going to be asked to make decisions once again when it comes to caretaking or taking care of yourself. So it's going to be a sense of, here we go again, and then we've got advice, okay? And advice is very, very strong in this. But in here, we've got blame on, for some people, it might be issues because of the viruses, although it is going to get better, but it might be time to start thinking about taking care of yourself if you're going to travel, for example, or, it's just time, okay? And so you want to do that, especially in the next couple days. The other things I want to look at over here are, this is the best. Okay, so this is a DC chart. This would be like people, partnerships, or the other people. Okay. And we see things like uh, body language, gestures. Terpsichore is the body. Okay. And going on their own. Okay. So, and this could be even gestures that are being done at the World Cup. Wow. I'm so like, I don't even know about soccer. And just watching some of these teams make their statements is just, oh, it's heart wrenching. I mean, it's just like so, not heart wrenching, it's heartwarming. It's just so good. And the world standing together. That's the age of Aquarius. The world making statements amongst each other, the people of the world standing together. Wow, that's the way to strength. So what we see here is the beginning of something that might be risky, but it will ultimately lead to an end. Okay? I mean, wow. I think these revolutions that we are seeing are the beginning of the end of a lot of things. And I, for one, am so happy to see them go. So this is a really cool thing. I like this going out on their own, the body. This is the protesting, but I also like that it's the athletes. So there's a lot of gestures with the body. Cupido is teams, but it's also our homes. Okay. That's incredible. So I just thought that I wanted to show you where this chart was already coming true. I guess that's what it's all about. And now on another note, because I like to do this, there could be something that all of us, particularly on the East Coast, could be dealing with within our own families. That also could be true outside of this country, because Cupido is once again within the orb distance of Terpsichore. Might be even looking at things like how family members walk alike or carry themselves very similarly and things of that nature. So before I clock off, which I will, I wanted to, you can see I've already been playing. I want to point out that I love this. Okay, so just this is going on. Okay, in the Aries point right now. And the cool thing about the Aries point is we have two slower planets. These are Pluto and Edemetus. They hardly move, which means they're going to be in the Aries point for a minute. And I love this. Transformation through resistance. My God, that's what's happening. And that's what's helping bring about our new age. But anyway, and again, this is only a few days. It's just so cool. But it is about our future. It's the future of us as countries, as families, as units, teams. It's awesome. But anyway, let's go to what I really wanted to look at. That just caught my eye, and I just had to go there. All right, so let me bring this down to where it is, which is the Aries point. There it is. Okay, which is not the Aries point. It's the 0 point, which is an Aries point, but not in this case. You will notice that this has an Apollon midheaven on it. I love that so much in so many ways, because it really does make us feel more successful. There's more of a broad-minded ability in our thinking. It is a part of that waking up, the ascension, if you will. I know the Republicans hate that word woke, but I'm going to use the word that really belongs there, the ascension. Okay? Because we have to ascend, we have to evolve. So as we ascend, that's that right there. That's it. So the next few days are really rather important, I think, in helping to set us up new beginnings that will help set up endings, however long it takes. And it is referring to the other side of this, and I do want to point it out, is it is related to Kronos, but also Ganymede, which is an asteroid that relates to being of service, okay? So it could be like Hebe, people that are of service, but it's also that idea of being, so you have to be careful of codependency, being more aware of codependency, but also people who say things just because they think that's what you want to hear. It can relate, although that's more related, I think, to a palace. But this is more like a service, to be of enabling, falls under the categories of enabling. So we are maybe looking at enabling Chronos, or what has enabled authorities. Now realize that Hades is over here too, so it's not far enough away to not be a part of the story. And so it could be a question of what's enabled things to get this far, what's enabled things to get this bad, what authority has allowed this deterioration. You can fill that sentence in any way you want to. Now, that Chronos does come with a node Venus, but there's also a south node Venus. So I don't really even talk about nodes a lot because of that. I mean, sometimes I will, it depends on where it is. But that could be that authorities are both beloved and oppressive. Okay. And I think that really does sum up a lot of what is going on already. But what I love doing is taking this particular idea and showing you how it's bringing on the new age, and how all of this is about, even the Ingress lecture earlier is about us kind of riding in to the new age, or ascending to the new age, which, by the way, requires you to be somewhat woke. Anyway, I just let throw it in. So I'm going to end it there. I want to say thank you, all of you, for watching this video. And again, if you find any problems with the videos, I am not going to berate you. I'm going to thank you, as I probably will have to take it down, but whatever. Anyway, with that said, until we meet again, I wish you all only happy readings.